your first and last name and spell them?
My first name is Zoe, Z-O-E, and then my last name is Chen, C-H-E-N.
Thank you. What are your preferred pronouns?
She/her.
Do we have permission to use your footage?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Can you tell us how your life... Sorry, can you hear that?
No, I can't really hear it.
Okay, yeah, the duck shouldn't be getting into it.
Can you tell us how your school life was like pre-COVID?
My school life pre-COVID, pretty eventful. Every day, wake up, and then, every day I wake up, then I get ready, almost miss my bus, like always, because that's how it works. I miss my bus all the time. And I hang around with my friends, not really caring about schoolwork. School was never a thing for me, like especially the homework itself. Always fooling around with friends every day.
Cool. How and when did you first hear about COVID?
I first heard about COVID I was on a call with my mom, and she was like freaking out about COVID-19 since it hit China, my parents' home country. And she was like very cautious about it and telling me that I shouldn't be going out.
Did you listen to her? Did you stop going out and all that?
I started to listen a little bit, but like my friends were the big encourager to like go out more and like fool around.
Yeah. So what were your assumptions when you heard about it?
My assumptions were I was a little freaked out by it. Like from what I heard my mom talking about, it was pretty like deadly, I heard. And it was like really like, I would say frightening, yeah.
Did you think it was gonna come to Canada and eventually the whole world?
At that point, I heard it already did, but like it was like really low, the cases. So I didn't think it would be this bad.
So what was your reaction when schools shut down?
At first I was happy that like I got a break from school and the work itself. But in the end, like I started to get a little annoyed with how it was basically locked down. You can't really go out and do much.
Can you tell us how a typical day of online school looks like?
A typical day when we were first starting out, I would say it was mostly do it yourself. The teachers assigned you work and you can do it, but you didn't have to do it if only like your grades were affected.
Were your grades impacted?
My grades were sort of impacted. Like before, I was like almost failing some of my classes, and right before it, I handed in a bunch of my work, so it was like all right for now.
Yeah. So what teaching style stood out to you? So like the whole day of one class, two classes?
A teaching style that stood out was the cohorts, like not necessarily the cohorts, the 2 classes a semester, but I didn't like how we went to 4 classes a semester, but you do 2 classes a week and then the other class the next week. It was hard memorizing everything.
How would you say the teachers handled it?
I would say the teachers handled it to the best of their ability, but it wasn't necessarily like teachable, I would say. Like,
what's it like being a senior with this being your first normal year of high school?
It still feels like there's progress to be made.
Yeah, keep going, it's okay.
Like, I feel it isn't like the same, to be honest. Like, it doesn't feel all the same, especially with extracurricular, because back then, I would say it was more every week we went to cross-country meets. Now we just go to one meet and then we wait until TV Raw. And like we don't get a chance to go to a bunch of meets instead of meets every week like it used to be.
Were you involved in any sports before COVID hit?
I was involved with cross country. COVID didn't affect it that much, but it did affect it like during the time COVID was impacted like bad. But it did impact my track and field. I joined the track team and we only went into like 2-3 practices and then it was shut down.
Is track and field a team sport? Or
It
do you do
was
it alone?
track and field's like a team sport, but it was more individual depending on the events you did, especially like with, I think it was relay was the only like team involved event if you joined.
Because there's a question like, how did your team handle the lockdown? Does that apply to the?
Yeah, you could totally do it.
Okay.
What events do you run, Zoe?
So events, I used to do high jump a lot in elementary school, but when I got into high school, I was told we couldn't do it since the school didn't have like the proper teachings for it. But other events I did were 100 meters, 400 meters, and then now I do long jump.
So can you tell us how your team handled the lockdown?
How my team handled the lockdown, a lot of us didn't like keep in contact. I only kept on contact with like one of my team members. We usually would go out and like practice sprinting a little bit and doing warm-ups and trying to keep up with it until we found out further information.
Did you stay in contact with any friends during the lockdown?
I did stay in contact with a lot of my friends during the beginning of the lockdown, and like our friendships ended up like drifting really like severely with how we all handled our emotions with this whole pandemic.
So what emotions would you say passed through your mind?
Emotions, I would say a lot of anxiety, like it just felt very depressing.
How would you say COVID impacted your social life?
It impacted my social life, I think I would say a little severely with my social aspect, with talking with my friends and the communication between all of us. Like we kept information from each other.
Did you become more extroverted or maybe more introverted?
I think I became a little more introverted. I kept to myself a lot for a while.
I feel like you said this already, but did your relationship with anyone change?
A lot of my relationships with my friends changed quite a bit. Like a lot of us don't speak anymore and we just cut contact with each other.
Did you make any new friends while you were at home, or did you change friend groups at all, or was it just kind of losing touch with people as you were in contact with them less?
So basically I did lose touch with my main friend group, and like we branched out. Some of us still talked, but I did branch out to a few new friend groups, and it was like mostly like jumping back and forth to those friend groups.
How did isolation impact your mental health?
Isolation impacted my mental health pretty bad, I would say.
What did you do to cope with that?
A lot of times I would either game with my friends, my online friends, or I would sit in my room and listen to music, watch TikToks, and just like avoid homework as much as possible.
What are your thoughts on the restrictions being lifted?
My thoughts were They did, I would say the restrictions, my thoughts were they did rush it a bit. Like, it was a little too early to, like, remove mask mandates and let us go back. It was, like, really frustrating when they let us back in. And then as soon as we get a break from school, we were told it was going to stay a lockdown for a bit.
Do you think COVID is over right now?
Personally, I think COVID isn't over. It won't be over for a while.
But do you think it will ever be over?
I think eventually it will, but from what I'm hearing, not for a while.
What is a mistake that we made in the way we handled COVID?
A mistake we made was lifting.
You can start that one again.
Sorry. Can you hear that?
Not really.
No? Okay. I'll just repeat the question. So, what is a mistake that was made in the way we handled COVID?
A mistake we made was, I would say, the enforcement and how we handled the mask mandates, especially.
And what do you feel was handled particularly well?
I would say, I would say we handled well with the whole, I would say, lockdown for a while and how we did stay home and, like, isolate ourselves a little bit.
What about the mask mandates did you feel was implemented poorly?
The mask mandates, like, the whole removing it way too early, like,
Sorry, hold on.
You can pass with the ducks if you want.
What are your thoughts on the people who thought COVID was fake?
my thoughts were they were fairly irritating with how they blast it all over social media and how selfish they were to even, like, think for themselves that it's all about their rights when it was about other people and how they could be affected, especially with the people who have severe health problems.
I like that. What do you think will happen in the near future with COVID?
I would say what would happen in the near future is that there are rumors that there are, like, variants of COVID now, like, way more. There was a new rumor of there was a new variant of it, and they say it was going to be not as bad as, like, Delta and, like, the original COVID.
What lingering effects do you think COVID will leave in its wake?
I would say lingering effects would be the aspect of how school will be and how, like, some extracurricular activities won't be the same as it used to be. And let's see. And how social events will be, I would say.
Do you think that students that are now in grade 12 are going to be affected in some way when they go to college or university because of COVID?
In ways depending on where your path will take you, whether if you are going to a different country, then this might impact you quite a bit as a senior. Yeah.
But, like, do you think we're prepared with, like, how the education was, like, uncertain? Do you think we're prepared?
I think we're a little more prepared with the education, and we got a chance to learn from the mistakes and experience the mistakes to see where we could fix things and where things will go in the future.
How would you say that COVID has altered your view of your own future?
COVID has altered my own view of my future. Like from the beginning, I thought I wasn't going to go to college. I was probably going to either drop out or something. But it gave me a strong idea of what I want in the future and what I see myself doing in the future.
What did you learn from your experience that you wish everyone knew?
What I learned from the experience was make as much memories as possible. Try to make time for your friends to make as much memories and like live it. Because in the future, you won't know if you can experience that the same way as you would now.
Awesome. Now, finally, what are your hopes for the future?
My hopes for the future? My hopes are to see other people grow and learn from this, and see my friends grow from this. And yeah.
Awesome. Yay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great.
That was very blinding.